Right now I thought I would talk about a little bit how you find what people are talking about in your discourse community and how people in your discourse community are talking about something that's already happening in the news. I'm going to be using the example of your majors as your discourse community, although there's certainly other communities that you might belong to. On the screen you can see a political cartoon that's talking about the latest measles outbreak that was in Disneyland a couple weeks ago, with the idea that measles was a previously eradicated disease because of vaccinations, but a growing movement of parents to not vaccinate their children has seen a resurgence in this disease. So this is an item in the news. Some themes that relate to this topic are things like measles, epidemics, vaccinations, anti-vaccinations, parents, community reactions, government policy, propaganda, and the spread of information. One useful strategy is to think about how someone in your discourse community might approach any of these themes or this particular news item or other news items that show up. In this example, someone that's in an applied information technology major and uses that as their discourse community might be talking about it in terms of sophisticated database creation to help diagnose and track people that have measles or have the potential of getting measles. If you're an English major in the English writing discourse community, your discourse community might be talking about the stories or anecdotes that people have that have experienced illnesses. Roald Dahl, who's a children's author who's passed away, but in the 1980s wrote a letter talking about his own daughter and how she suffered from measles and ended up dying from encephalitis related to measles. If you're in a psychology major, you might talk about the fear or the rationale that parents have behind not vaccinating their children. And if you're in the simulation and digital entertainment major, you might look at video games that feature epidemics and how they influence or are a response to things that are happening in the news. Another way you can approach what people are talking about in your discourse community is to go to places that people are already having conversations and find out what those topics are instead of culling information from latest news stories. And there's 3 places that are really good areas to look at in terms of finding out what people are talking about in your discourse community, especially if that discourse community is related to your profession or your major. The first one is the Occupational Outlook Handbook, and that's just at www.bls.gov/OOH for Occupational Outlook Handbook. There's a search in the top corner, and you can search for things like environmental scientist, and then you can search any job, but what's really great is once you're on this Occupational Outlook Handbook is if you scroll over to more info, you will get different organizations and associations related to that profession, and they usually are great resources of finding the genres that people are using in your particular discourse community or the topics that people are talking about. So this is the National Environmental Health Association. And they have the latest news latest news links. They also have the Journal of Environmental Health. If you keep scrolling down at the bottom, they have position papers. They also have a bookstore down here so you can see the types of sources that people are talking about. On the left-hand side, they have things like e-learning, NEHA in action, so things that they're working on, and other affiliated organizations. The second place is to go to Twitter and do just a Twitter search. So you don't have to have a Twitter login to use it. It could just be twitter.com/search, and you can search for your discourse community to see what people are talking about. So an easy example is if we just search for psychology, you can see all the tweets that come up about psychology. Again, you don't have to have a Twitter account to do this. You can look at people that might be useful to follow. So there's Psychology Today, Psychology News, Psychology Press. That gives you an idea of what's happening in the news. The last place is just to do a simple Google search for blogs that are related to your discourse community. So in this case, we'll do history blogs, and we get some lists to find out what people are talking about. I hope this gets you started.